Good afternoon, Comms Club. Welcome to March Matters video number 4. So my commitment was to do a video in this group every weekday in March so that we can spring into spring with some enhanced communication tools. And today I want to talk to you about a mantra that I use often when talking to people about how to maximise their impact when they communicate. And the phrase that I use is always eyes, voice, fingers, because I think it matters which medium of communication you use when you want to really have a conversation that's important to you or get your point across. If you remember from some of my previous videos, you've probably heard me talk about the fact that what we communicate is only actually made up 7% by the words that we actually say. And in communication, people get hung up a lot on saying the right thing. They don't want to say the wrong thing. And actually, what we say is only 7% of everything that we communicate. 30% of our communication is the tone of voice that we use to say those words. And then the other 63% of our communication is made up of all of the non-verbal clues that we give off at the same time as we say the words in the tone of voice that we choose. So that 63% is in our body language. It's in the way our facial expressions match or contradict the words that we're actually saying. And it's in that subtle, the vibe, the impression that you get from somebody, all of those non-verbal clues that you can use with their body language, with their facial expression, to create an understanding and a connection between the two of you. So if we understand that words, tone, and then non-verbal clues, it goes in that order, you can see why the most important conversations in the world should not be the ones that you have by text. Because the only thing the other person has got to decide how they feel about and to make an opinion on and to respond to is words. If you text somebody something, then they've only got 7% of everything that they need to form an opinion and an understanding of what you're saying. So your important conversations, I would urge you not to have by text. You could say, well, actually, okay, I won't text someone, but what I'll do is I'll leave a voice note. Well, that's fine. At least you're hitting 37%, because in a voice note, whether that's on WhatsApp, whether it's on an answering machine, whether it's on a messenger, whatever the means of communication, if it's a voice message that you are leaving, then you are getting the 7% communication from the words and you're getting the 30% communication from the tone of voice, because someone can hear that in a voice message. The problem is they're still not getting the full experience from you. So a voice note is often better when you want to convey an important message than a text, but it's nowhere near as good as being in person. So what I would remind you of is in video number 3, I think I talked about the time it takes to have good communication and bearing in mind the time you've got and whether it's a good time or not to have a conversation. And time is a precious commodity. It's the most precious commodity you've got. And so when you have a conversation with someone in person and you give them your time and undivided attention, it says you are the most important thing in my world, or this conversation matters because I am choosing to have it with you eyeball to eyeball. Hence, my mantra of eyes, voice, fingers. If you can see somebody in the eyeball when you are talking to them, I know that you're going to be able to pick up the clues from the words they're using, the clues from the tone of voice they're using to say those words, and you're going to see all of the non-verbal communication clues that you need to really understand your communication. So making time for those in-person conversations is really important, because what it does is it makes sure that your connection between you and the person is at its strongest. It means the rapport that you build is at its strongest. And it also means that you get the best opportunity to convey your point, read someone's reaction and respond accordingly. Because here's what happens. You might try to, in text, deliver an important message. So you type out your text message and send it. So here's the news flash of this video. Any written communication is never read in the tone of voice by the person who wrote it. It is read in the tone of the voice by the person reading it. So even if you're the one that wrote the message and you typed up this totally upbeat message, your tone at that moment and your mood will never be conveyed. That text message will be read in the tone of voice that the person reading it is feeling in that moment. It's the difference between texting a message to someone that just says, looking forward to, I'll see you there, can't wait. If the person reading that text message is having a great day, they're literally living their best life, and then they get that message from you, they will read it in the mood they're in. So they will read, looking forward to seeing you later, can't wait. And it'll be upbeat, it'll be optimistic, it'll be happy, it'll be inclusive. If that same person is having a really tricky day and they've had one disappointment or one frustration after another, or they just feel like the world is against them, you send that same message in a written format and they will read it as, looking forward to seeing you later, can't wait. If they feel sarcastic, they will read it in a sarcastic tone. If they feel unloved, they will read it in a way that makes them feel even more unloved, even more frustrated, even more unwanted, even more sad. So if you want to take no chances with an important piece of communication, don't just use your fingers to text it. It's only 7% of your opportunity. Don't just leave a voice note and give them 37% of the communication that they deserve. Actually, video call them in the moment or arrange to see them to have that conversation, because it says, this matters to me, you matter to me, you're at the centre of my universe, the relationship and the rapport is at its strongest. And it's fascinating to see what happens when you parent this approach, because I use this all the time. So if I get a vibe from a message that somebody is distraught, or there's a message behind the message, and I receive a message on my phone, voice note or text, I will quite often just video call them straight back, because I know that they're there because they've just sent me the message. And the number of times that people are surprised and they're like, oh, I didn't expect you to call me. I'm like, sounded important, talk to me. What you glean in that moment is precious, and it's often much quicker than typing. I will, if you've ever received a call from me, you will know that I will on many occasions say, do you know what, it is quicker and more effective to chat than it is to type. But when you parent this approach and you role model it, because our kids are just great imitators, they believe and use this approach too, and it sets them up well. And there's two examples that come to mind when I think about this. Last year, Ethan did his GCSEs. So he was 16 and he wanted to work for the summer because he had about 12 weeks off. And he wanted to try his hand at a trade. So he was looking out for anybody who wanted, just a labourer with no particular skill, just somebody that was tall, somebody that was strong, that would do all the crappy jobs. And he saw an advert on Facebook for a local construction company who were looking for somebody new to join the team. And on there it just said a telephone number and it said message for more details. And so we saw this ad together, and it said, message us if you're interested. So for speed, we quickly typed a message to that mobile number that said, hi, I've just seen your advert, would be really interested to hear more about the details. I'm free between, I think it was June and August. And we sent it off. And then the guy responded and he said, great, can you tell us a bit about yourself? And we can go from there. And I said to Ethan, okay, let's think about what you want him to say. And he went, Mum, I would rather just pick the phone up to him. And you think, you're 16 and you'd rather enter into that vulnerable moment where you're going to just have a chat with a potential employer. And of course, I knew that would potentially have a very positive effect on the recruiter. So I said to him, okay. And he said, right, let me just make a few notes. What do I want to tell him? And I was like, oh my God, literally makes my soul sing, because he was preparing the 3 or 4 things he wanted to make sure he didn't forget to say, and any questions he'd got. So he was prepared to have that conversation. And then he just dialed the number and he picked the phone up And he said, "Hi Lloyd, my name's Ethan, you just sent me a message. I thought I would give you a ring." This guy was so surprised. He said, "I have never had anybody who's actually rung me." He said, "Everything is done by message." Anyway, they had a lovely little chat. Now, it turns out he couldn't work for this gentleman because he didn't have the right qualifications to work on building sites. But the guy then sent him a message afterwards and just said to him, "Do you know what?" He said, "I just want to let you know you made a really positive impression, and if I ever have a position that would suit you, I will make sure I get in touch." And do you know what? It was a shame no job came of it, but actually a number of things were worth celebrating. Ethan knew he would create the best impression if he didn't just text. He knew, and he didn't know how to video call this man, and it would have been a little bit weird, but he had the courage to pick up the phone. And what that did was it sent the message that this position, this opportunity really mattered to him, and it made him memorable. And sometimes that's the difference between you and the next person. It's just the memorable factor. And also I remember Brooke, and she was much younger, so she must have been probably year 3 or 4, and there was this little rumour going, so how old would she have been, about 7 or 8, and there was a little rumour going around school that if you repeated this phrase into a mirror, a little bit like Beetlejuice for those of you who are as old as me, if you repeated this phrase into the mirror 3 times, then this ghost would come out and get you. And she had told her little friend at school that it was true, that her big brother definitely knew that this was true. And her little friend was terrified as a result of this. And the mum rang me that evening and said, "Look, they've been talking about it at school." Her little friend, who will remain nameless, like, he's literally so upset and he's scared to go to sleep. And so I said to Brooke, "Look, you know, I've just spoken to so-and-so's mum. Did you say this to him?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Was it true?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Right, well, he's really sad and upset, and he's worried about going to sleep. I think, you know, it would be good if you told him the truth, that you'd made it up and that Ethan had never experienced it for real." And I said, "Do you want to give him a call?" And she said, "Mum, I need to FaceTime him." And I was like, okay. Because even at 8, through everything that she'd seen me do and that she'd heard me coach and that I'd encouraged them to do over time, even at 8 years old, she knew that for that important conversation, her saying sorry, for that to have the greatest impact, she needed to look her bestie in the eye. And so bless them, they're only 8, and she's got my phone, he's got his mum's iPad, and, you know, and she sat and she just said, "You know, I'm ringing because my mum said that, you know, you're worried about going to bed tonight because of what we talked about earlier." She said, "I just need you to know it's not true. I don't know why I said it. Ethan didn't say it was real, and I'm so sorry, and you can go to bed. Don't be frightened because it's definitely not real." And she was on the edge of tears, and he had been in tears, and it was so cute. And you know what? I thought, my God, you're so brave. As an adult, I found myself shying away from conversations that mean a lot to me, and conversations when I need to say sorry. I've shied away or put them off or danced around them until the inevitable has happened. But here she was, just embracing it, and she knew to have the biggest impact in that conversation, she needed to see the whites of his eyes. And it was beautiful because when she sort of said that, her little friend went, "Okay," and just went like that through the screen, and then Brooke fist pumped him through the screen, and then they moved on to talk about something totally different. Now, I know if that had just been a phone call, she'd have left that call still feeling a little bit upset about what she'd done or worried about him, but because she could read his reaction, she could see his facial expression, she could read his body language, and they had all of the non-verbal clues because they could see each other when they spoke. When that call ended, she was over it and she'd moved on. And I have to say, it was a proud mum moment. And it encouraged me sometimes when I'm facing difficult conversation to remember eyes, voice, fingers. And if my kids can do it, then so can I. So that is today's little nugget of communication for you. When you are thinking about those important conversations, don't shy away. Don't be lazy in sending a voice note which rambles on because you didn't properly think about what you needed to say in the first place. And don't text it to feel like you can tick it off as done when actually you know that you are shortchanging the important conversation. I'll leave you with that. I'd love to know your thoughts, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Okay, bye for now.